Hi, and welcome to It's Time to Transform Your Life Now. You can see everything is a little bit different. So I have Dr. Mein right next to me. She lives right here in San Diego. So I figured, why don't we just actually meet up and do this? So here is Dr. Mein, and oh my gosh, I mean, let me just share what it is. And so you're a chiropractic physician and author of Different Bodies, Different Diets, which has been around for how many years now?
20 years.
20 years. Oh my gosh. So you guys are in for a treat. She's going to talk to us all about that and then how to go into her next book that she wrote, which is called Releasing Emotional Patterns with Essential Oils. So you're going to get a ton today. You're going to get all about the different bodies, different diets, and then what to do with the different oils. So we have a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So without further ado, Dr. Mein.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really pleased to be part of this project of teaching people how to transform their lives. And this is really what I ended up doing when I wrote Different Bodies, Different Diets, because I found I couldn't just give a person a blanket diet and expect that to work. I was also looking at what do we need to do in order to give people a tool where they can really transform their lives. And the one element that we're all really familiar with is our diet. And so by knowing what foods support your system, not only does it help from the health aspect, it also develops a lot of personal awareness and growth, because it's the single most simplest tool to be able to develop your awareness, your personal awareness, and that's to start paying attention to your body. And so what I found when I started working with the diet is that the diet was actually just one part. And the area that amazed me, that was so profound, was the personality profile, because I found that the personality profile has a lot to do with a person's dominant gland. And so the various different glands have different functions, and that's also reflected in a person's personality. And while I started with 3 different body types, I discovered the same thing with every typing system, that it didn't go far enough. And that was one by one, I was discovering different types until eventually I discovered that there were 25 different types. It's based on your dominant gland, organ, or system, and it basically is your programming, because that tells you why you're here, what your passion is, what your motivation is, what your life lesson is. It literally takes 20 years of introspection and personal development and condenses it into 4 pages.
Wow.
So it's amazing, not only in your own self-discovery, but also when it comes to your children. And this is another area that I find that's so profound, is the families I have worked with where the parents know the body type of the children. It makes such a difference in their development and self-esteem and their awareness and knowledge of self. So they're not so pulled into needing to fit into the group consciousness, and they really know who they are. So this is a key element when it comes to developing your own personal awareness and giving you tools that you can work with. And so what I found with the personality profile is...
She's that famous right now. She's being called on Saturday.
What I found with the personality profile is not only are we looking at where your strengths are, but then there's also the challenges. And the challenges are that part that really tells us what we need to develop in order to develop our strengths. And in order to deal with that negative side, because most of us are really familiar with the negative side of the emotions, the positive is usually some vague thing out there somewhere. And if you don't know what it is, then how in the world can you ever get there? And so in my process of my own personal development, I was introduced to a number of various different things when it came to dealing with the emotions. And so we can do things like we can express an emotion, and that's when you do things like beating the pillow and so on to release the emotion. The problem with that is you're constantly in the same negative emotion.
Oh, okay.
So you can't get out of the loop. And the more you focus on something, so if you're focusing on a negative emotion, what you're going to get is more of the negative emotion.
Right. Good point.
So, according to Einstein's theory of relativity, this is a planet of duality, which means we have a positive and a negative polarity. And so, if there's a negative polarity, there has to be a positive polarity.
Right.
The next challenge is, how do you find what that is? And once you know what that is, then you can look at shifting things. And I found that a really good example is anger. And we all know what anger is. We know what happens when we express our anger. And particularly as children, you learn in a hurry that that's not acceptable. And so what are you going to do with your anger? So if you don't express it, then the tendency is to internalize it. And if you internalize it, then that sets us up for chronic degenerative diseases. So that doesn't work.
Yeah, did you hear that? If you internalize your anger, it sets you up for chronic degenerative diseases, said by the doctor herself.
And Norman Cousins was the one who really proved that, because he was working with his own experience with cancer. And so what he did is he started watching funny movies. And kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit when we're looking at what's the opposite side of anger. And so we look at anger and we look at what causes anger. And anger basically comes when you have a roadblock. So if you look at traffic, for example, and road rage, what causes road rage? Basically, you've got a traffic jam. And so what do you do when you have a traffic jam? A traffic jam can also be a metaphor for any other blockage in your life. You can also see that with children. So if you have a child who is picking up a object like a knife or something that could be dangerous, then what you need to do is you need to divert that child's attention and give them something else rather than making them wrong for having the knife and making a big deal out of it. So a lot of the things that we experience are basically our higher self or other areas that let us know that we're on a dangerous path and we really need to do something different and change. So what happens when you hit a roadblock? You're going to have to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
So essentially, you can go over it, you can go under it, you can go around it, you can go through it, or you can sit there and let the energy continue to build. Well, when the energy continues to build, it eventually gets to the point where there's so much energy that it creates an explosion. And an explosion of negative energy is anger. So what's an explosion of positive energy?
Excitement?
Laughter.
Laughter. Okay.
So we look at a lot of times what's the opposite side of anger, and so many times people will say, well, joy or happiness or a positive thought. And then we want to look at, how do you know that? How do you express it? And the expression is laughter. So this is why laughter can be so valuable when it comes to marriage surviving, relationships surviving, and
like surviving, yes.
Surviving in general. What do you do to be able to dissipate that energy and to be able to laugh? And then the key with laughter is the laughter being genuine, rather than something like a sarcastic laughter that doesn't really change the energy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I had an amazing experience once to observe a man who would put himself in situations where people would be angry at him, and justifiably so. And so what he would do is he would go into a situation where he was supposed to have done something and hadn't. People were angry at him, and he had this incredible ability to transmute that energy and get the people to really laugh. And so the energy was totally shifted and transmuted.
Wow.
And as I started looking at it, when I was looking at the various different body types, his body type was heart. And the gift from the heart body type is the ability to manifest and to be able to transmute energy in the process.
Wow, so he was living out his body type and didn't even know it.
Exactly. It was just something that was just intuitively there in the way he ended up expressing it.
Yeah.
And so that's the value of really knowing your body type, is then you know what your strengths are. And once you know your strengths, then you can work with those. You can allow that to really guide you and move you forward and be able to express more of your full potential rather than just playing small.
Yeah. So with these body types, I mean, we're not going to have time to go through all 25,
No.
but what would be a good way to start to introduce the viewers that are watching right now that want to transform their life? What would be a good way to introduce them to it so they can start to get in, so you can start to get an understanding?
Just to give you an idea, this...
You want me to hold it?
Yeah.
I'll hold
This is an example of all of the 25 different body types. And you'll see that the arrows will point to various different areas of the body, which is where that dominant energy happens to reside. And to give you an idea of where we started with this, I was first introduced to this with a Bravenel's book, and that was based on Beeler's work. Beeler was looking at the dominant glands, and the strongest glands being the adrenal, the pituitary, and the thyroid. And those particular glands have a very strong effect on the body. So, for example, the adrenal body type is the one where most of the Weight Watchers diet was actually developed for, because the adrenal body type is the one that will gain weight predominantly in the torso and not so much in the lower legs. And you've heard many times, if you want a diet, that diet food is yogurt and cottage cheese and fresh fruits and vegetables. And that works really well for the adrenal body type.
That's so interesting. I didn't realize that was what Weight Watchers goes after, just that one body type. One out of 25, you guys. 1 out of
25. And that was because the adrenals are the ones that have the ability to put on massive amounts of weight and lose massive amounts of weight very quickly. So these would be the star dieters. So who are you going to pick? You're going to pick the ones that do the diet the best.
Yeah.
And these are the ones you're going to work with. Well, the problem is when we started working with the thyroid body type gains weight in their lower body and not so much in the upper body. And so what happened with the thyroid body type when she was following the Weight Watchers diet of yogurt and cottage cheese, she lost weight in the upper body, which is where she didn't want to lose it, and gained more weight in the lower body, which is what she had that she wanted to get rid of in the first place. So then we started looking at another diet, which was primarily protein and vegetables. And instead of eating the majority of your food by later in the day, the thyroid is better eating smaller meals more often throughout the day. And then we had the other contrast, and this is the pituitary body type. And the pituitary body type is the one that should eat the majority of their food by 2 p.m. because they do not digest protein well in the evening for dinner. So what do you do if you have a family where you're the one pituitary and you happen to be married to an adrenal that eats the majority of their food at the end of the day?
Oh, no.
What you do is go ahead and cook for the adrenal and just save your protein for the next morning and have that for breakfast, and then you can have the salad and the fruit and eat lighter for dinner. So in looking at the 25 different body types, then I found that I could also put those into 4 different quadrants, and the 4 different quadrants, we could put those in different categories depending on weight gain areas and also personality profile. And so looking at the personality profile, we were looking at, is your dominant sense mental or emotional, and or is it physical spiritual? And so the mental emotional is, what do you pay attention to most? When you're backed against the wall and you have to make an important decision, do you listen to your head or your gut? And the gut is not quite the same as the intuition. The reality is it's all about integrating both sides. And so the physical part is, you want to look at something that you can see, feel, and touch. That's more real for you. Whereas the spiritual side, this is the part, ideas and concepts. It kind of gives you an idea of where we're going with this. And then I found, as I started working with the different body types, is the personality profile.
This is good stuff, you guys, huh?
Goes through and even tells you who you are, what your passion is, what motivates you, and you'll notice that it's not all the same for every single body type. So for example, when we look at the passion for the adrenal body type, for the adrenal, it's success, and their motivation can also be that negative side, which is the rejection, as opposed to the balanced, where the passion is adventure, and people can be an adventure. For the blood, the essence is harmony. Harmony is one of the things that's absolutely essential. The blood body type will have difficulty even sleeping if there's conflict in the house. And so this gives you an idea of kind of where do you start, and what we will be working with is we'll be using the essential oils as a way of being able to deal with the negative side of the emotion. We've got the life lesson, and this helps a lot when you're looking at, what am I going to do with my life? And so we're being asked in high school to come up with a career and something we want to spend the rest of our life with.
Right.
When you don't have a clue what it is,
Yeah.
and you don't really know where your strengths are or what you're interested in. And so by knowing your particular body type, this gives you an idea of what direction to go and where to go. And that's where the life lesson can be really helpful.
That's amazing. That's amazing that you can just figure out your body type and figure out all of the, like, your passion and what you want and what you're supposed to be eating. It's amazing what you were able to figure out.
I find the body typing to be so profound,
Yeah.
not only in learning who you are, but also understanding everyone else in your family, understanding your friends, understanding your relationships.
Yeah.
Our tendency is we tend to think that everybody thinks the way we think.
Right. Right. You mean they don't? What?
Does not work that way.
Right.
And then we think, well, if I explain it to them well enough, then they'll get it. And then they'll see it my way. Except that doesn't work either.
Right.
And I used to think if I could do something easily, then somebody else would be able to do it if they would apply themselves. That doesn't work either.
Yeah.
And so by knowing your body type, you know where your strengths are. And you also know where the strengths are of the people around you. So you can have realistic expectations. And where we get into trouble in our relationships is we have expectations. And the other side of that expectations is the acceptance. It's the gratitude. It's the gratitude of appreciating who that person is and appreciating what they're bringing, and look at everything as a gift rather than it being an expectation.
I love that. You guys, did you hear that? Think of everything as a gift rather than an expectation.
And so when we're working with the chakras, for example, so the second chakra is dealing with our relationships. And we can work with essential oils in releasing emotional patterns with essential oils. I also go into the chakras.
What? Oh my gosh. You guys, you're in such a treat right now.
And this is releasing emotional patterns with essential oils. There is a section in here on the chakras, and that is when we go into what the various different emotions are and the other side of that. So the other side of expectations is appreciating, and the way out, the way you get there, is I am complete within myself. And so we've got that for all of the different chakras, as well as various different essential oils and tones that we can use.
Oh my gosh, so much good information. So there's 25 different body types that you are, and you can go on your website and go take this, what you said, 20 years of research into a 4-page test to figure out what body type you are.
So basically you can go to the website, and that is bodytype.com. And you'll notice at the top we've got the little buttons on Take the Test, and that will take you through determining your particular body type. So it will start with physical characteristics and ends with personality characteristics. At that point, you will have your ebook, which gives you your diet, your personality profile, some of the other areas what are core emotional issues, and a lot of other information on how to implement that.
That's perfect. So once they figure out their body type, then they'll know their core emotional issues, and that's when they can bring in the essential oils. Is that correct?
You don't have to know your essential oil. You do not have to know your body type to bring in the essential oils.
Okay.
But it helps because there is another section on core emotional issues. And by knowing your body type, you'll be able to look at those. So again, we think that everybody's dealing with the same thing. And so core emotional issues for the adrenal, for example, are conflict, failure, and abandonment. For the eye, it's fear of various different emotions. It's also when you want to give somebody the finger. And overwhelmed. I mean, not everybody's the same.
Yeah, you eyes out there.
And stomach, we have a little bit of similarity between stomach and adrenal. So we've got abandonment, we've got control, we've got fear of being a victim, we have conflict. And then we also have some of the issues. You'll notice that there are some that are similar. The reality is we all have all of the emotions. And when you start with the oils book, the easiest way to begin is to start with the oils reference. And so the oils reference has a list of all of the various different emotions. And the one that we are most familiar with is anger. And so when you look at anger, what you'll notice is that we've got the emotion, we've got where the alarm point is, which is where it's stored. We have the oil, what oil you use. It also goes into what is the other side of the emotion, which would be the positive side. And then there is the way out, which is the affirmation.
It's laughter, right?
It is.
Did I remember right? Okay.
You did. You did. And to just kind of give you a little better idea when we're looking at What do we do to change emotional patterns? And so I found that we could work on a particular element. And so you can work with affirmations, you can work with releasing different emotions, and the emotions are stored in the limbic system of the brain, which is the seat of the emotion. And this is why adding the essential oils can be very, very helpful in being able to really get to the root of a lot of the deep emotions. I found that in working with emotions, we've got not only feeling what the emotion is, we're looking at the positive side, we're looking at the negative side. We also want to look at the mental component. The mental component is, what do I need to learn from this situation? What did I do to create this? Where are we? What do we want to do with it? And then the physical area is the emotion is stored in the body. And so we know from traditional Chinese acupuncture that anger is stored in the liver. And so if you have problems with the liver, look at the anger, look at what's that underneath emotion. And then to access the spiritual side, it's, what do I need to learn from this situation? And that's where the affirmation comes in. I found that working with affirmations was very powerful, but it was only one part. I found that it worked much better when I could incorporate all the various different elements. And that was the reason for my writing Releasing Emotional Patterns with Essential Oils, and to be able to really give people a tool that they can use for any emotion and being able to shift it. And so we look at how do we work with the various different emotions. And so we've got the emotion itself. The first way to work with it is start paying attention to how you're feeling, what's going on with you. Identify with your emotion. Or if you're working with someone else, you can listen to them and listen for that core emotion. And so that may be, well, what is it that you're really feeling? And sometimes that can be another way of guiding a person into knowing what emotion to start to work with. So then you would go to the emotional section, you're going to look at what that emotion is, you're going to look at what the other side is, you're going to look at the affirmation, and you want to know, where do I find it? There's an area that says chart. That will take you to the chart section in the book where you can find the location of the particular area where it's stored in the body. Another way to access your emotions is listen to your body, because if you have a pain in a particular area of your body, that is a wonderful way that your body is telling you there is something going on. So low back pain, particularly hip joint, that can have to do with feeling unsupported. Muscles can have to do with being stressed. Hip joint can have to do with emotions. Worry is actually the esophagus rather than stomach. So this is another way of accessing it.
So you guys are they're getting the ebook, right, with all of this information.
And so what's in the ebook is the information that pertains to their particular body type. And then the Releasing Emotional Patterns with Essential Oils is also available in digital format as well. And that's where we're going into, what are the emotions, where's the chart, what do you do with it, how do you work with it.
See, look at what she's giving you. She's done these years of research on how to do all this, and this amazing doctor is giving all of this to you so you can release your emotions.
And that way you have control of your life.
Yes.
You are no longer the victim. And once you can do that, you can create your reality the way you want it. And so if you find yourself getting stuck someplace, look at what the emotion is that's trapping you, that's causing that restriction or blockage.
Yeah.
And once you do that, then we can work with changing it. So we'll just do a quick demo to give you an idea of what's involved with this. And the points that I use are the acupuncture alarm points, so that's what you're finding with the chart. And there are points on the body, there are also points on the hands and points on the feet. So Some of these points are not always the easiest ones to access, particularly when we're looking at the liver point. So I'll show you the options on that one. And in addition to the body point is the one that changes. Then there are points that are universal. These are ones that you're going to find with any emotion. And you probably realize the times when you're under stress and the tendency is to do this or this. And the reason we intuitively go to these emotional points on the forehead is because that's a way of accessing the emotional body. So these are the points that we want to use. You can go with the body point and the emotional points and smell the oil, and that's kind of the shortcut. It's like that's all you really need to do. But I also found that there are some other points that are very, very helpful. And that is the crown point at the top of the head. We've got another spot, which is the release point, and that is where the head and neck join. So that spinal cord area, that allows you to release a lot of the emotions that's been held in the body for a long time. And then we have the filters on either side. And those are the little depressions on both sides in the back of the head. And these are really important for those of you who are sensitive and intuitive, because the tendency is to pick up somebody else's emotions and we think that they're ours. The reality,
Okay. I think I do that a lot.
we end up doing it more than we think we do.
Yeah.
And then the reason for that is because there's still a component in us that isn't totally resolved. So that's another reason why we can be triggered by someone else's emotions. It's not that somebody is dumping their emotions on you. It's really about they're expressing what's going on, and if you haven't cleared those emotions in you, then it's going to trigger you with those unresolved emotions within yourself.
So by putting the oil on those spots, what does that do? Does that protect us from other people's emotions? Does that let our emotions out?
It's a filter, it's a buffer. So that means you can process the emotions in your energy field, so you can put it out here rather than needing to take it inside. And that helps. That is really, really powerful for practitioners and anybody who's working with people, which pretty much is everybody.
Yeah. Perfect.
So this is what we're finding. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be transmuting anger into laughter. The oil is purification. The acupuncture and lowering point is liver. And the way out is my direction is clear. And so where those points are located is we do have acupuncture points that are on the nipples. And
you hear that?
So
good spot, huh?
Could be kind of fun with your partner.
Could be fun, or yourself.
There's always that, yes.
Make sure it's not a hot oil, or maybe you want it to be a hot oil.
Interesting with the hot oil, and that hot oil is cinnamon bark. And so the way I discovered that particular one is I was working in the office with a patient, and also had some staff members that were in, another friend that happened to be down, and we were finding that there was something that was going on with the pancreas area, and feeling there was something where there was something that was stuck. What it ended up being was irritation. And the other side of that irritation is bliss. And the oil in that one is cinnamon bark, which happens to be a hot oil.
Yeah.
And so putting that on the point for the pancreas, which is just kind of more underneath the breast, more on this center area right in here on the left side. The hot oil could be very stimulating and can also give you that energy rush, which can create that bliss feeling. So
I might be using some cinnamon bark when I go.
Good way to deal with a little of the irritation. It definitely changes that into bliss.
Yeah.
The affirmation is bliss runs through me, so you can definitely have that experience.
That's a good one. You guys want bliss by cinnamon bark.
So this is purification, and what we'll be doing is taking a drop of purification and put that in your non-dominant hand. And then we want to rotate the oil clockwise 3 times. That wakes it up. And then you want to put the oil on the emotional point. The point on the hand is on the side of the hand, and it's the little finger side. These points are about the size of a $50, so if you're not right at the pinpoint area like an acupuncture needle, it's okay, because the oils also have intelligence, and they will go to where they need to go. So they will follow your intention. And so you've got the oil on both sides. Again, you don't have to saturate the area. Then you want the emotional points on the forehead. It's here and here. We've got the spot on the top of the head. Then we've got the release point and the filters on either side. And so then what you'll do is breathe the oil and connect with the feeling. So connect with that feeling of anger. And if you don't happen to feel angry at the moment, just think of a time when you did and connect with that feeling. Take a breath in. Breathe in the feeling, breathe in the anger, and breathe out and let it go. And again, just take a breath in and connect with that anger. Connect with other times when you felt anger and breathe out and let it go. And then just scan your body. Take a breath in and just feel your body. Feel any areas where you felt that anger and breathe out and let it go. That's anger. And the other side of anger is laughter. So take a breath in and breathe in laughter and allow yourself to feel the laughter. Allow yourself to embody the laughter. And it's always good to laugh.
Right.
If you happen to not feel like you're connected with that laugh, then think of the laughter of children. Think of times when you have felt the laughter. Take a breath in again and connect with the situations in the past and breathe laughter into all of those areas. And then again, take a breath in and breathe laughter in the areas in your body where the laughter was stored, where the anger was stored. So take a breath in and breathe laughter into areas of your body where the anger was stored. This is laughter. And the way you move from laughter, the way you move from anger to laughter is my direction is clear. My direction is clear. My direction is clear, which allows me to let go of anger and to experience laughter. This is laughter. How often do you do it? Whenever you happen to think about it. Another real good time to use the oils is at night before you go to bed. Because this allows your subconscious to do a lot of the processing. You can also do it in the morning when you're setting the tone for the day, and then any other time when you happen to think about it, if there's a situation that triggers you, or if there's someone else who happens to be triggered by a situation and you can experience the anger. One of the ways of working with family members sometimes is I'm feeling anger, and so I'm going to shift this. And so in order to do that, I'm going to use my purification. Would you like some? So they may end up with this snippy little, I don't want any of your oils, and no, I don't want to do that. It doesn't matter. Go ahead and put the oil on yourself anyway, because what happens is positive energy will swallow up negative energy, cleans it up, and it gives them back to you. And so that's how you can affect other people without actually touching them. It's kind of how do you end up being a human being. and by just your essence and what the energy that you end up bringing. So this is another thing that you can do to be able to transmute energy, transmute the anger into laughter. And so what I was finding with the area as far as the affirmation, and the affirmation is, how do we go beyond just creating the same thing over and over again? And that's understanding the situation and getting the guidance. And so the affirmation is that spiritual part. That's the one that allows you to connect with the lesson. Why did I create this in the first place? What do I need to learn from this situation? And so rather than asking a bunch of questions, an affirmation is a positive statement. A positive statement is affirming that you already have what it is that you are asking, which is basically the power of belief, the power of prayer. And that is your affirmation. My direction is clear. So then you know where you're going, where you're heading, what it is that you're going to do. And you ask, you affirm, my direction is clear. And that's when you're waiting for the answer.
Wow. So I'm feeling so good. Like purification. Oh my gosh, I just love purification. And so my question is for people, for either yourself or patients or clients, what have you seen that they've been able to release emotionally from using these essential oils in the points that you tell them to?
This is a way of being able to access deep-seated emotion, things that people have been dealing with for years, almost your entire life, because we all have all of the emotions, we just don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, instead of getting triggered on the freeway with the road rage, then
oops.
Then you get to the point where you look at what's going on. You can accept it for what it is. You can use that time to do another affirmation, kind of just set the tone for the day. What is it that you want? Sometimes there are things where you have those delays in traffic that can save you from an accident down the road. So rather than just judging something and being so focused into what it is that you think you're wanting in the moment, it's about letting go of that control and being in balance. Control is another major issue that a lot of people will have too. And as a matter of fact, everybody has control. They just have different ways of expressing it.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's controlling other people, it's controlling ourselves, it's controlling our environment. But the bottom line is it's all control, and all control is fear-based. So
True.
By looking at the emotions are basically in two areas. So emotions are either love or fear. And if you look at what you're experiencing and you identify with that fear, you want to look at what's identifying the emotion and transmuting that. And so when we look at various different oils, so we can look at the oil purification, for example, and there is a section called the oils reference, and then with that oils reference, it's going to show you what emotions are also used for purification in addition to anger. And it can be things like fear of being alone, fear of rejection, fear of seeing, negative thoughts, that's a big one, fear of recognition, even a higher octave of anger, which is violence. And so you're going to find another area in releasing emotional patterns called the oils reference. And that means if you find a particular oil that you are really drawn to, or that you are repelled by, that you don't like, take a look at what the emotion is.
Oh.
Also, as you're working with the emotion, I found as I was going through the emotions, I would take an oil and then I would look at all the other emotions that were associated with that particular oil, and I would do one right after the other so you can layer it. And sometimes you'll find that you'll work with a particular emotion and it will allow you to uncover what's underneath it. So things like a situation. So you look at a situation, a common situation can be, I'm not as successful in my life as I would like to be.
Yeah.
Well, there are many reasons for that. The one reason can have to do with what's going on in your life. What are your unresolved emotional issues? And so when we look at the gifts, we get the gifts after we've done our work. So this is why it's so important to pay attention to what's going on in your life. We have our friends and relatives that are good mirrors for us and will reflect back to us areas that we have a little more work to do. And
that's a nice way of putting it. Some family members and friends aren't that nice, but yes.
Sometimes people can be very blunt and very direct,
yes.
especially if they have different issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to see somebody else's issues than it is to see yourself. The nice thing you can do with that is when you see someone else's issue that bothers you, that's a real good time to start looking at that emotion within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you can go to the particular emotion.
That's perfect.
And one of the other areas, just start paying attention to your emotions. That's the easiest way to work with the book. What emotion are you feeling? And most of the time it's a negative emotion. That's what we want to know about. And look that emotion up and work with the oil. What happens if you don't happen to have an oil? Well, if you don't have that one, even looking at the emotion and having the conscious awareness of knowing what's the other side of it, what's the emotion, what's the way out, this can be very, very helpful in being able to unhook from the pattern.
So that's kind of like the placebo. Like you don't even have to have the oil. It's just the fact of thinking about the oil can help.
Yes. And the other thing too, because a lot of times you're out and you've used the oil in the morning, but you don't happen to have it handy. Well, the fact that you've done it once means it's in your energy field. It's in your consciousness. So you can tap into that again.
I've never heard that before. I've been using oils for years and I've never heard that before. That's amazing.
And you'll find that the oils will tend to build. And so as you've worked with different emotions, you can see how it's easier to work with the other ones in addition to what you've been focusing on necessarily.
Wow. Oh my gosh, we've gotten so much information. You guys get to go figure out what body type you are. That way you can figure out what your diet's going to be, what your, what is it? Passion?
Your passion, your motivation, what's your life lesson, what do you need to do, how do you relate to other people? That is the area that is the most profound. Mm-hmm. I've had couples tell me that reading the body type literally saved their marriage.
Wow. Well, yeah, because you get to understand your partner in a way that maybe they can't even explain.
That's it. And you understand, why does this person think this way? What do I need to do to help them instead of constantly doing something that triggers them?
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And with your children especially, to be able to give them the guidance and the direction that they're needing. When it comes to businesses, I found that hiring a person based on the strengths of that particular body type made such a difference, because that way a person didn't get stressed out trying to do something that was difficult for them. And so the reality is we all have all of our parts, and we all have these unlimited capabilities. You're just going to find there are certain ones that you're more comfortable doing. You find certain things you're better at than others. And by knowing your strengths, then you can focus on those areas rather than trying to fit into another mold and creating more stress in your life. So this is where even the area of looking at job placement, what things do you want to do? Look at your passion. Look at your life lesson. What gives you joy?
I love that. That's so beautiful. You're just so generous to be able to give everyone this body type. Now you guys can figure out who you are, your partners, your kids by this body type test on her website, and you get the PDF version of how to release emotions with essential oils. And you don't even have to have the oil. You just have to use it as a placebo. So here you go. You can transform your life so easy with all of the 20 years plus work that Dr. Mein has done. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. This was so much amazing information. And how can people find you?
My website is bodytype.com, and you can go on the website and take the test. You can also find the oils book. And one other little tidbit is when it comes to relationships, and of course that's always a real fun one. People ask me, well, what body type is my best partner? It really depends on what it is that you want. And so I do have a free newsletter, and the newsletters are archived. There's also something on relationships as well, so you can go through a lot of those areas. And so on relationships, it's go through and find out what you want, and then look at the characteristic traits of the 25 body types and find the one that matches what you're wanting that way, rather than trying to look at it from physical appearance. Once you've identified the type, then you can start looking at the physical areas and you know what to look for.
Well, there's your magic wand for your amazing relationship right there. So, okay, well, thank you so much. So I have one last question, kind of a surprise question. So what is it that lights you up every single morning?
For me, it is doing something that's worthwhile. And worthwhile can apply to so many different areas. And making a contribution is a major part. And so my practice is really about being able to help people find the areas, discover themselves, how to help them from the health aspect, the emotional area, how to teach people to really be their best selves, and to empower them to be able to take charge of their own lives.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for all of the information that you just gave us. Go to her website right now. Go get the body type. Go get the essential oils so you can start healing your life, so you can transform your life. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Thanks for putting this together and sharing this with everyone.
Thank you. Okay, bye.